Alright, welcome back everybody to our State of the Civilizations tier list, part 2. If you have not seen part 1, that will give you all of the framework for the tiers, as well as the first half of the civs. So the link to that will be in the description if you haven't seen that. Yeah, go watch that. And with that aside, let us go ahead and continue our fun, starting with Koreans, who are going to... No, not there. Going to be going here. Something is off. And I put them here with some hesitation, just because they did get a pretty big change recently for nerfing their towers a little bit. You have to get the extra range at the castle. And then they get the, more importantly, the free archer armor upgrades. So I've played like a couple games with them, and they feel really good. They are, I think, a really good civilization. War wagons are probably a little suspect. They are a super insane unique unit, especially with when you consider the wood discount you get with Koreans. That might even be a little too strong. But regardless, the civ is, I think, pretty interesting. I mean, I know I studied Korea historically, but I meant like in a gameplay perspective. Them as a water civ is pretty good because you get the wood discount for your ships. And then you also have the turtle ship, which are awesome, although probably a little too situational still. But other than that, I mean, you have a wide array of archer options, very strong defenses, and they are very much a defensively oriented civilization. So it's a matter of, can you get map control? Enough map control so that you don't just die when you run out of resources because you're so slow. But with that said, I'm not too sure how they're going to play out going forward, and that's why I'm waiting to update my 1v1 Arabia tier list. But I'm going to still have a little bit of an question mark when we're looking at Koreans, just how they are going to be played, if they're going to be more of an open map civ, closed map civ. They are a decent flank civ, but will we actually see them played more? And I just have a lot of questions. So the civ, I mean, thematically, it's mostly there. It's just a matter of, okay, tower rushing, is that too strong? Not anymore, I think, so that's not really a problem. So I think we're getting to the point where Koreans are okay. I want to see the proof in the pudding, as they say. Oh boy, Lithuanians. Yeah, we're gonna be down here, unfortunately. Lithuanians are a really strange civ, because in many ways they're good at everything, on every single map type. They're good on open maps, they're good on arena, they're good on BF, they're actually really good on water maps, and can feel really swingy. I think the biggest problem is, one, the combination of the latest plus the relic bonus. Well, really, it's the latest is a problem, and the relic bonus is also a problem, and the two together were are insane. The latest was just recently nerfed to have less pierce armor, so they're going to be a lot more vulnerable to ranged units, but they're still a very powerful, fairly cheap option for Lithuanians. I feel like that just means that we're not going to see them all that often, because Lithuanian heavy cavalry is already going to be super good. And to me, the biggest problem is the monk bonus, or the relic bonus, not the faster working monasteries. It's either not a factor, or so powerful that it completely, the game revolves around just deny the Lithuanian player relics. Which is sometimes possible, and then which case Lithuanians kind of fall flat. But when that's not the case, Lithuanians will just completely steamroll most every other civ with all that extra attack, plus the gold generation that you just inherently get from relics. I think their trash being really good is fine. Having gunpowder is good. The starting with plus 150 food, I don't really like from a design perspective, because it just feels like a better version of the Persian starting resources. Yeah, Persians start with a little bit more wood, but Lithuanians start with 150 resources more in total, whereas Persians only start with plus 100. But it does admittedly open up some interesting strategies when it comes to water maps, where you can send villagers to wood very early on because you have so much food in your bank. So I do like that aspect of the civ, and I kind of like the idea of, okay, we're going to be using cavalry, and we're going to be using monks, and just kind of using the one to buff the other, I think is interesting. I just think that the way it exists in the game right now is just really, really snowbally. You take a mechanic that's already going to be one of the more snowbally mechanics in the game, which is relics. Relics are really important in the game because they break stalemates and give you a reason to, take map control. But it's a win more mechanic if you have another bonus on top of the gold generation. It's like, okay, you're already ahead because you have to have map control if you're taking the relics. You can't just be holed up in your base unless you like sneak it in or somehow. So you're just going to get more ahead. And unless you, again, like sneak the relic in, it's not going to really help you come back. It can just be so frustrating to play against Lithuanians in a lot of ways, but especially when it's just like they have like 3 relics in a monastery in the back of their map. Like 3 relics with any other civ except maybe Aztecs are like, okay, well, they have a little bit of an advantage, but, if you have 2 relics, then you can totally make it work. 3 relics with Lithuanians, yeah, you're dead. You're just super dead. And I feel like that bonus just needs to be changed in some capacity. It probably needs to be attack that is lower and divorced from having relics, like maybe just like +1 attack in Castle and +1 Imperial. That already gives you some of the best paladins in the game, and the latest is also a thing. But the latest also probably needs to be a little bit different, otherwise people are just going to keep using knights because the unit is too similar. Yeah, there just needs to be a lot more work done with Lithuanians. Magyars going to Something is Off. I feel like Something is Off is probably like a little negative in its framing because I think that the Something is Off civs are mostly there. It's just, something is off. But Magyars, they need an eco bonus. I know I'm an advocate for getting giving Magyars the bonus. Town centers are built 100% faster, starting in Castle Age. It really helps your mid-game eco and helps you boom a little bit with a civ that just has no eco bonus. Like, yeah, you get the scout discount and the free attack upgrade, but that doesn't actually help your economy. That just gives you a better scout rush or men-at-arm rush or whatever. Like, they have, like, good power spikes, and, like, they're not a bad civ, right? They have a pretty broad tech tree in terms of, like, military units. They're very, very similar to Huns in terms of what they do, but Magyars are just a little bit more, like, power spike focused with aging up to the next age, and then their post-Imperial age is just absolutely insane. Like 1v1, they probably have the single best post-Imperial age, with Magyar Hussars, fully upgraded skirmishers, cheaper regular Hussars, cav archers that have extra attack and range, so you can keep them alive a lot more easily. And you do have halberdiers, although you miss squires in the last armor upgrade, but you still at least have halberdiers. So yeah, Magyars, like they're super insane, but they just really lack an eco bonus. Like they just economically fall behind so many other civs that do pretty similar things. And I feel like you just never really pick them very often. Like, even in KOTD, Magyars weren't even picked all that often. And, like, they're supposed to be, like, an open aggressive civ, right? Like, I get the whole, nomad becoming not nomad, becoming settled identity, which is one why I think that the faster constructed town centers is a cool bonus idea. Although people say that's OP. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like the idea is there. They just, again, miss that eco bonus, and it just means that they're overshadowed by so many civs that do very, very similar things. Like I always tell people, Huns are Magyars, except they're a little bit worse early Castle Age, early Feudal Age, and post-Imp, and they're better at every other point in the game. So it's like, you play Huns most of the time. Or, Cumans these days, or Tatars, or whatever. Mongols. So I feel like Magyars need a bit more. They need a bit more to stand out. I feel just something that makes them a little bit more unique. Malay. This is a civ that is so hard to balance and has received balance changes like constantly ever since they were put into the game. But I do think that we're getting there. I would maybe put them Something is Off if I just Malay existed in their current state in a vacuum, but knowing what I know and what everyone else can know is the whole history of how they have been balanced. I think putting focus on harbors, I think maybe tweaking harbors a little bit could be interesting. Like, I think it would be cool if the harbor was a separate building that cost stone, and then you could give it more defensive capabilities, like give it a stronger attack. Like, I think that would be a cool tweak to the building. The castle upgrade, thalassocracy, giving the would upgrade your existing docks to harbors and then like unlocks the harbor like as a separate building. I think that'd be pretty cool. Karambit warriors have received a bunch of tweaks here and there. They did get their cost decreased a while ago. I'm still not too sure on the unit because, again, it can be one of those things where they can just completely overrun you, or they'll just die instantly. But I feel like we're pretty much there. Like, the unit is still pretty good, I think. It's just hard to tell because you don't see Malay all that often. Like, usually we see them on either water maps or, like, arena, where you just see them go for arbalests most of the time. But, they have fully upgraded halberdiers, fully upgraded skirmishers, as well as the trash two-handed swordsman. So, like, all of that is super, super good. Your cavalry is, of course, absolutely dreadful. Their faster age-up bonus is, I think, one of the more interesting bonuses from the new civs. Just gives you so many different options and gives the civ a whole different set of strengths and weaknesses. The battle elephant rush thing with, like, forward stables and team games, and then just killing your opponent with early Castle Age battle elephants. I think that was problematic, but I think that just changes to the battle elephant specifically is the answer to that, if that's not already been answered. So yeah, I think Malay are a civ that I'd put them lower on the tier list, so to say, in terms of minor tweaks, but I still think that they're getting there. They're like, 90+% of the way there. Whereas these civs are maybe like 80% plus there. Next up, we have the Malians. Going to complete with this most recent patch. Because my only complaint with Malians was that the Geppetto had a really annoyingly long frame delay. They buffed that in this patch, so Geppettos are a lot more powerful, as you can hit and run with them a lot more easily. You can also micro them, again, just like as part of your army, a lot better rating unit. And then Malians, like, they have so many different options, but they also have, like, the challenge where you don't have Bracer, Siege Ram, or Halberdier, which are all, like, super important in general. But because Malians have so many options and such a strong and diverse, like, early to mid game, you can kind of, like, get yourself over the finish line, I guess, with your Ferimba cavalry, Champ Scarls. You have gunpowder, that whole thing. Geppettos, like I said, are a lot more viable now. The Civ just has so many different things it can do, and it definitely feels very unique and very powerful in a lot of scenarios. They're a great Civ for 1v1 Arabia, they are a great Civ for hybrid maps, and they're a pretty solid pocket Civ for team games. And yeah, but they're not good on closed maps, just because their late game isn't all that powerful. And yeah, it's all about, like, trying to emphasize your strengths, your power spikes with Malians, and just sort of, like, riding that to victory in the late game, which I think, not many other civs really have that dynamic going for them. So I think that, they're up there with the most complete civs. And notably, the only one that is not an AOC civ. So I think that's actually really cool. Mayans. Something's off. And that something is Obsidian Arrows. If Mayans just had something that wasn't Obsidian Arrows, they would probably be up here or at least here. Like, Mayans, again, they have very noticeable strengths and weaknesses. Yes, they are one of the best Arabia civs for 1v1 and one of the best flank civs for team games. But all of that aside, at least one civ or two civs are always going to be near the top. And I don't think Mayans are so overbearingly strong, especially after all of their various nerfs, that they're, like, just completely, like, uncontested top tier. Like, they're really, really good, don't get me wrong, but especially if they didn't have Obsidian Arrows, I don't think they would feel anywhere near as... They wouldn't feel completely scary to go up against if you're either flanking a team game or on 1v1 Arabia. Like, they used to be top tier on Arena, but then really fell off just in the shifting meta of the more recent patches. And, they're not really a water civ, and it's more of just Mayans. It's like snowballing, right? You just have a really strong early game, and a really strong mid game, and a really strong early Imperial Age, and then you kind of fall off. And it's about using your limited unit options, because with Mayans you have 3 choices: Eagle Warriors, with Eldorado eventually, Plumed Archers, and Arvalests, usually with Obsidian Arrows. And that's like really it. Like, your monks are okay, not amazing, your siege is okay, not amazing, both of which Aztecs have that are really good. You do have Halberdier, which is great, and fully upgraded elite skirmishers. But again, it's about using the tools that you have with Mayans and just like creating an advantage that your opponent can't ever come back from, because you really don't have anything that's super population efficient, but your army is like very cheap. And I do like that. I think that Mayans, again, they're a very classic civ. The Plumed Archer is super fun, unique unit that I think is actually pretty well balanced after its nerf. And it's just Obsidian Arrows needs to be something that's completely different. I don't know what exactly, but I don't like Archer bonus damage against buildings. Spoiler alert for later. So yeah, Mayans, take Obsidian Arrows out of the equation, and they're up here or here, but Obsidian Arrows is still a thing as of me recording this. Mongols, easily very top of the list. My favorite civ, Mangudai, are perfect in every way now. They're almost there. Mongols, again, one of the most classic civs, a fan favorite civ. It's my favorite civilization. Mangudai are my favorite unit. Mangudai are also probably the single best unit in the game, probably the best unique unit, and can feel incredibly unstoppable once you get them rolling. But they no longer have 0 frame delay, and that definitely matters a lot because it makes them more interactable. And the dynamic of Mongols of having the very strong early feudal age and dark age as well, and having the really strong late game, but then having like nothing in the middle. Again, it's a very unique dynamic with the civ that not a lot of other civs, like, they don't really share that as much. Like, again, like Magyars kind of have that similar like style, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like Mongols, it's more interesting with Mongols because you have a lot of different ways you can open and a lot of different strengths if you can make use of the good hunt. Yes, their laming is really good, but that's more of a laming problem than a Mongols problem. And Mangudai can be really hard to stop once you get them up and rolling, but it is really hard to get them up and rolling. They are fairly expensive, and they actually have a very long train time. So what prevents Mongols from being up here? Not Mangudai, in my opinion, and that is just nomads. Their castle unique tech is silly. Again, it's one of those techs like strongholds that's just like, it's pretty much pointless. Like, do Mongols need something to make them like super powerful? No. But, maybe something else, something minor that you could maybe give to the civ. Town centers give like 100 pop space, so you don't even need houses. Like, something I think that would just be a little bit more interesting than like destroyed houses don't lose you pop space. Like, that's pretty lame. You can give them something that isn't super powerful or defining that is still more interesting than that. But other than that, I think Mongols, again, they're classic civ, and everybody loves them. Yeah, Mangudai are borderline, but I do think that in the context of the civilization, that it's okay. Like, if Mangudai were attached to a civ like Mayans, then that would be absolutely insane and broken. But they're attached to Mongols who have, like, no eco bonus past Dark Age. So, that's fine. Next up, we have Persians, a civ that, after being in the shadows for so long, DE's release with the plus 5% faster working TCs and docks in Dark Age instantly jumped up to the top. And then the plus 5% was removed, and then they kind of fell back into obscurity. So we're going to put them at something is off. I mean, Persians, they're a very, like, classic civ, right? You have the whole war elephant thing. That's fine. I do think that Mahouts, like any other unique tech that only benefits their unique unit, I think is a little but because it's specifically the war elephant, like, maybe that's fine. I don't know. I don't have a better idea personally. Not boiling oil, that's for sure. But the problem is that Persians in many ways are just overshadowed by other civs that kind of do what they do, but better. I missed them having the plus 5% faster work rate in Dark Age for their town centers and docks. But especially with trash bows being like really cheap like they were back then, like that was really, really overpowered. Also, we had NAC, which happened, and I don't remember if the nerf happened after Hidden Cup 3, but definitely for NAC. I was there for that one. We had so many hybrid maps, and like the way that tournaments were usually run back in the earlier part of this year is hidden pick, no repeat, with like a varied map pool where you had something like, 1 or 2 hybrid maps in, and you could always pick your civilization. So that just ended up giving you a bajillion Persian mirrors. Actually, now that I think about it, Hidden Cup 3 definitely had a lot of Persian mirrors in it. So I think the nerf happened after that. And that, like, that whole system kind of lends itself to you just picking the same civs over and over again. And in this case, that was Persians. I would not be opposed to Persians getting that 5% in Dark Age back if you hiked the cost on the trash bows even more. Like, I think you could do Okay, their crossbowmen are 25 wood, 45 gold. So 70 resources in total. I think they cost 60 wood right now. I think you can bump that up to 70 wood, so it's the same total amount of resources, but, shifted all to wood instead of wood and gold. And maybe that would help them, but right now you just really don't see Persians played that often. They're not really an open map civ. They're not really a closed map civ. They are a pretty strong cavalry civ for team game pocket and 2v2 cav civ. There's obviously the whole douching meme with them, but that's kind of its own thing. But even in something like 2v2 World Cup, we really don't see Persians played all that often, usually in favor of civs like you say, like Magyars or Lithuanians, and obviously Franks and Khmer were top choices, and not usually ever Persians. But still, they are like the classic cav civ alongside Franks. Persians just more focused on cavalry as a whole, whereas Franks were focused mostly on the knight line. Super insane eco with them, and there's just something that's a little bit off that prevents them from seeing the light of day anymore, which is unfortunate because I do like playing Persians. Portuguese are going to be somewhat problematic. They did recently get a buff where they have all technologies except aging up research 30% faster, and that's definitely an interesting bonus, and I think gave the civ a more depth than it had previously, which I think was really important because the civ was just kind of boring before. It's still a little bit more on the bland side, and I think a lot of it has to do with their team bonus. That is just it's completely useless in a 1v1, but there are other bonuses that are like that, like the Spanish team bonus or whatever. But even in team games, it helps a lot in terms of like coordinating early laming, but other than that, it's not really that great. You have organ guns, which are a super snowbally unit again. In mass, they kill everything. In lower numbers, they die to everything. It's a really weird unit, and it's kind of hard to micro for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. But ever since DE came out, the units felt a little bit off. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And then you have the problem children of the Caravel and the Feitoria. The Caravel is a fairly lousy warship because they die so hard to fire ships, except against longboats, which they are insane against because longboats stack up so much. But it's like, unless you're up against Vikings, and yeah, you're going to be up against Vikings a lot on water maps, but unless you're up against Vikings, the Caravel is generally inferior to the regular galleon, which Portuguese have very good galleons. So the Caravel, maybe, I don't know, maybe make them a little bit better against fire ships. But the Caravel is so similar to the galleon that it needs to be worse than the galleon at something. Otherwise, you're just going to be building caravels all the time, which you don't want to be doing. You want there to be a difference between caravels and galleons. And because caravels have the Scorpion, pass through bolt mechanic, you do need to make sure that they don't just kill every other warship. So I understand that it's very hard to balance, but right now I don't think they're all that great. Unless you get to like crazy numbers in post-imp on water maps, but that very rarely happens unless you're in a team game, in which case like they're absolutely insane. So it's kind of tricky. And then finally the Feitoria, I don't like the Feitoria. It is never going to be balanced. It is either going to be hilariously overpowered or really bad. And that is entirely dependent on how much gold and stone it generates, and wood as well, to a lesser extent. It's like, it costs 20 population, so it's like, okay, you can give up 20 population, but in late game, if you have villagers that are only gathering, like, food and wood, then you can justify killing off some of your villagers, so you can add in Feitorias for the extra gold and stone generation. Portuguese also have guilds, by the way, so they can get that little bit of a better exchange rate at the market. I don't know. I feel like the Feitoria is just, it's always going to feel OP or terrible. And then it's super OP on like islands or team islands when the map runs out of wood very quickly, and then you just have your Feitorias and you're just laughing at your opponent because you have infinite wood income. I don't like inevitability, or, something that just will pay for itself forever without any sort of thought being put into it. The only mechanic that's in the game like that are Malay fish traps, which are niche enough to not really be an issue and just kind of be like a fun little bonus for the civ. Although, yes, it can be problematic with Malay, but we just very, very, very rarely. I've only ever seen one game where Malay fish traps won the game because they had infinite food. And that was a very famous game between Hera and Viper on islands. But that was the only game I've ever seen where literally it came down to infinite food on the fish traps. Not just like a lot of food, but infinite food. That Malay aside, Feitoria is like that times 1,000 because it gives you gold and stone. And I just don't really think that has a place in the game. Oh yeah, the only other thing that's like that are relics, of course. But relics are something that you need to take map control to get. You have to fight for relics. You don't have to fight to put a Feitoria in the back of your base that has, a good amount of HP and is just like, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do a ton. All of that said, however, Portuguese are starting to come into their own as a civ. Like I said, I really like the depth that's added with the faster researching text. It gives them a little bit more interesting, I guess, dynamic when it comes to like getting little power spikes from getting text researched faster than your opponent. The gold discount is actually very, very nice and can help a lot in terms of crossbow or knight production in Castle Age. Even helps, make you more efficient in late game. So the civ isn't like a disaster, and the situations in which like Feitorias are problematic or caravels are problematic, they don't come up like all that often. It's frequent enough where it's like, but it's not so common as to like really be like breaking. So I think Portuguese, again, they feel a little on the generic side, but I'm starting to like them a little bit more these days. Yeah, I mean they can be fun with organ guns and stuff, and I definitely like the the whole gunpowder and innovation-y technology sort of identity with the Civ. The biggest thing that they need changed though is just tweaking things like the Caravel and Feitoria to just not be, I guess, so polarizing. Once you get that done, they're going to be looking at least like up around here, if not like here. Saracens. Big yikes. Big yikes. Saracens are one of the most unbalanced civs in the game. Not overpowered, not like underpowered, just unbalanced. The market bonus combining with the siege archer bonus, it just lends itself to like these sorts of all-ins that can be really hard to stop, but it's like, if that doesn't win you the game, then you're just dead. The fact that your archers are cheap units, right? You don't need much of an eco to make lots of archers. And you also don't need much of an eco because of the Saracen market. However, as much as you can get crossbowmen out quickly that can just completely destroy enemy buildings and town centers and stuff, that doesn't actually help you win fights. Like, your crossbowmen aren't better in a straight-up fight. When I talk about this a lot in World Cup 2v2 because we see, like, Saracens directly competing against another archer civ, like Mayans, Britons, Vikings, Malay, that whole sort of thing, Ethiopians, Vietnamese, Chinese. And against all of those civs, all those other civs are going to have a pretty big advantage in terms of just, like, having a consistent archer production and better eco or stronger archers or all of the above. But it's like, if the Saracen player can just like take a good fight, then they just like win the game instantly because you just make a bunch of archers and they kill all the buildings. That is not good. I don't like archer bonuses versus buildings. I seem to remember talking about this with obsidian arrows, and I feel like that bonus does need to be changed. Some people say that the market bonus is OP, and I do think it's OP in conjunction with the archer bonus, but I'd rather change the archer bonus because I think it's a lot less interesting than the market bonus, which has also been around forever, whereas the archer bonus, the Civ-specific archer bonus is only a DE thing. The team bonus has always been there, but that hasn't really been super OP or anything. So yeah, some sort of work needs to be done there. But wait, there's more. Saracens are supposed to be like the OG camel Civ. You rarely ever see camels with them. Firstly, because of the all-in potential with their archers, they're mostly just seen as an archer Civ. And then even their camel play, it's pretty generic. You have no bonuses for your camels, except once zealotry is researched in post-Imperial Age. There's nothing to help you out in mid-game. Anything from Castle Age through mid-Imperial Age. And that is like, that's sad for like a Civ that's very much supposed to be a camel Civ and naval Civ, but I like the galley bonus. I think that's fine. The transport bonus is good too. So it's not like they're completely hopeless. What I'd like to see happen is to have Saracen camels get like plus 10% HP or something like that, and then make zealotry cheaper and weaker. You can make it so like zealotry's cheaper but only plus 20 HP as opposed to plus 30. And then that's going to be, it's like front loading some of the bonus of zealotry, so you actually get like extra HP camels in Castle Age. So you actually have something in that sense for your camels. But wait, there's more. Mamelukes. Mamelukes are like, they're so expensive and they're countered by so much that you just never get to see them. And it's such a fun, unique unit. The unit probably needs to be cheaper. It's just way too much gold, I think, for how easy it is to counter. Like, yeah, it's one of those units that, like, it can eventually become like a one unit kills everything, especially back when it had 0 frame delay. But nowadays, they don't have that. And yeah, they're more resistant to halberdiers, but again, Saracens usually just are never, they're never really enticed to make Mamelukes, which I think is really unfortunate. And finally, Madrasa is a silly unique tech and should be changed. There's a lot of other things you can do with Saracens. You can even, do different things with Saracens and monks. Like if you just front load the bonus, so it's like monks cost, you could even make it like monks cost half. It wouldn't help in a monk rush. It'd only happen, post Castle Age. It would still be a more interesting bonus because it would open up monk play a lot more in late game. But the fact that the monks have to die before you get any sort of value is like, that's really crappy. It's like something bad has to happen for you to get any value. But you know what's better than that? Not having the bad thing happen. So yeah, not a great tech. Still though, I love the flavor of their market bonus. I think as a water civ, they're also pretty good because the market bonus helps there a lot too. So they're definitely in a better spot than Indians from a design perspective, but they're still leaving a lot to be desired. They have a lot of work that needs to be done. Slavs, almost getting to the complete tier. A lot of civs are like just barely missing the complete tier because they have a really crappy unique tech. Cough cough, Celts, cough cough, Huns. Slavs get to join the club with, Mongols as well. They join the club with Orthodoxy, which is just a really lousy unique tech. I don't know what exactly you could change it to. Like, I don't know, give monks like 8/8 armor or something like that, but then that kind of encroaches on the Aztec extra HP. I don't know exactly, you could just make it a different bonus entirely. But yeah, it's not a good piece of design. And is it the most important thing in the world? No, obviously. But I'm trying to look at civilizations in their entirety, and that is just... It's not like I can say Slavs don't need any changes, and then I think they're like a really well-designed, everything about them has a purpose. If you look at all of the complete civs, every single one of their unique techs and bonuses has a purpose and a place in the game. The weakest unique tech would be probably Tigui in the Castle Age from Malians, but even then, that is pretty helpful when it comes to dealing with raids in the late game. So it's like, you get 5 extra arrows for free from your TC, like that's not useless. Extra, 3/3 armor on your monks, which are going to die really quickly anyway, is pretty bad. And then finally, the Boyar is a little too expensive, I feel. Most of the time, it's just like Slavs are used as a cavalry civ, but it's just you stick with mass cavalier because the switch to Boyars is too hard. So I feel like making the Boyars a little bit cheaper would be a big step in the right direction. I did like the change where they made them a little bit slower, but gave them more pierce armor. I think that definitely helps make the unit a lot more interesting to really sort of get the feel of the slow, heavily armored cavalry. But yeah, definitely a little too hard to switch into. That plus Orthodoxy are the only problems, though, with Slavs. And I think other than that, all the other bonuses are cool, interesting, work well, and it's a really fun civ to play, in my opinion. The farm bonus just feels really strong, and then you have those splash damage infantry, which are great. Cheap siege is great. Having good cavalry, all that stuff. I mean, it's a fun civ. It's just those two particular spots are a little bit suspect. Spanish. I was debating between here and here, but I'm gonna go with somewhat problematic, because I don't think they need massive changes. I wonder if we live in a world where the overall power level of all the civs has gone up, that we can take away the cav archer armor for conquistadors. That was the change in DE that made them take extra bonus damage from skirmishers, which made skirmishers a lot stronger of a counter unit, and kind of kicked Spanish out of the realm of being useful. Now, if you compare Spanish to, say, Burmese, it does feel like Spanish are a much more complete civ, because Spanish are always going to be viable in a team game situation as a cavalry civ, and all that is quite good. And their team bonus is really sick. Having the strong navy is good. I actually really like the the flavor when it comes to like Inquisition and supremacy. Missionaries are still a little but at least they're not completely useless. They're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. But, at least all that stuff is interesting. They do have, the cheaper blacksmith upgrades, faster working builders, always makes them a very strong nomad civ no matter what. So, like, they'll always have that going for them. So, they're still a little bit problematic. They're still very reliant on the power of the conquistador. But that is just because they miss crossbowmen. But I think that's okay, because, like, that has always been, like, a core part of the civ design. And because you have a ranged castle unique unit, unlike, say, Bulgarians, which do not. So it's kind of like for them, it's like you don't have crossbowmen, nor a ranged, castle unique unit, so you just really lack ranged options. Whereas Spanish, you miss crossbowmen, but you do at least have range with the conquistadors. Also, they get to be the only civ in the game that has fully upgraded trash units, which is also a fun little distinction for the civ. So definitely a little bit of work needs to be done here and there, and I don't have, like, all the answers necessarily, but I feel like it's not in, like, the worst spot ever by any means. Tatars. I'm gonna go with something is off, but it's gonna kind of be like Koreans, where they received a very major change very recently. So I'm gonna have a question mark over them still, just because we haven't had the chance to really see them play out a ton. So Tatars, they just got the bonus where your sheep will spawn extra town. Your sheep will spawn extra town centers. That's an amazing bonus. Man, I should be a game designer. Now I have visions of town centers spawning from sheep in my mind. Dang it. No. So your town centers will spawn sheep upon reaching the feudal age and every subsequent town center you build thereafter, which is really insane for booming because it means you can delay farms so much. And then you also have the longer lasting sheep. You have the high ground bonus, which it's really interesting, but it's also really situational because it's like useless on arena, which is, I think, really unfortunate that you have one of the most common map types where it's like completely useless. It's also more or less useless on water maps. Yeah, there are like some water maps that have elevation on the water, but again, that's kind of unfortunate as well, because otherwise Tatars actually have a pretty decent navy, and again, delaying farms is really nice. The Keshik is low-key, like, insanely good, and now that Tatars are being picked more and more, people will probably end up realizing how freaking strong the unit is. I really like the unit, I love the look of it, but I feel like it might be a little too strong. And I think the gold generation mechanic is a little bit weird, but it's fine. So I do think the civ is mostly there. I really like Tatars. I feel like they have a really cool identity as, like, being the defensive cav archer civ. I am now having to hold Dash's bone for him while he chews it. I do really like their identity as, like, the defensive, like, late game oriented cav archer civ, which is kind of like an oxymoron because, like, all the other civs that are like step cav archer civs are all much more aggressive. But Tatars, they have bombard towers, they have hand cannoneers, their extra armor on their cav archers, and the hill bonus lead to a more defensive playstyle overall. So it's like you hold, like, strategic positions, you can also use your extra long-range trebuchets to help you out in that regard, and then you sort of, like, raid them to death with your hussars and keshiks and stuff. I like all that a lot. I think it's really cool, and the sheep bonus that they have now is really interesting, if not a little weird. But I think it could definitely work. But again, I definitely, like, they're a civ that would probably be maybe down here last patch, but now that they have a better eco, are probably going to be, like, up around here. And yeah, I feel like I want to see them play out more. They might be a little too strong. They might be a little too, like, polarizing and, like, super strong in some situations, but not as much in others. But I definitely think that they're getting towards the right direction. Although I think that, say, compared to Malay, I think they're still a little bit further off from that. But Tatars haven't been in the game as long, and I think they're the highest rated of the last con civs. Let's see, Bulgarians are here. Cumans and Lithuanians are down here. So yeah, Tatars, great job. You have the Ornlu award for being the best designed, most complete last con civ. Next up, we have Teutons. Deus Revolt. It's almost there. I think that the civ it's a little too strong, I think, on closed maps. I think that the extra +1 armor in Imperial Age that they got was a little bit of a double buff, because remember, It used to be just +1 melee armor for your infantry starting in Castle Age, and then they changed it to +1 armor in Castle Age and +2 in Imperial Age, but they also made it affect cavalry. And this means that Teuton paladins actually beat boyars in a 1v1, which is like, that shouldn't be the case. So I do think that's a little too strong and can be a little too tough to deal with, but I think other than that, the Civ is pretty much fine. It's just like the slow, heavy, armored defensive civilization, and has one of the most iconic unique units for sure. And I think that buffing the speed on them definitely helps them be a lot more relevant. Like, yeah, they're always going to be slow, but they only have a base movement speed of 0.8, which is the same base movement speed as a villager. So a Teutonic Knight with Squires has the same movement speed as a villager with Wheelbarrow, which isn't really that bad, all things considered. And then, like, great siege, great overall defenses. You have crenellations, which is really sick and can help mitigate the fact that you don't have Bracer. I like Ironclad a lot. I think it adds a lot of flavor to the Civ. And then their eco is just insane as well. So yeah, like, it's a really fun Civ in a lot of situations. The conversion resistance is nice, but I do feel like they're maybe a little too strong on closed maps. And they're probably fine as is on open maps as well. Teutons are probably like a little too strong for my taste. But other than that, like, once you get that out of the way, I think, like, flavor-wise, they're totally there. So I think you could otherwise bump them up. Turks, oh boy. Turks are going to major changes needed because they need some major changes. So we had the patch recently, which gave them +1 pierce armor on their scouts, which, on the one hand, makes them stronger against archers, which is what they really needed, but it also made them good at what they're already good at, which is, like, it can be really overwhelming for, like, a lot of civilizations, especially ones that, like, focus on ranged units, just to have, like, a bunch of instantly upgraded light cav and then hussars with extra pierce armor just, like, smash you in the face. And they also have a lot of other really good options. I like how they sort of have the dual nature of being both a gunpowder civ to, like, showcase the Ottomans, but then are also, like, a light cav hussar civ to showcase the Seljuks. So I think that's actually really cool. And I think the Janissaries are really awesome, but I don't think that the light cav bonus is what they need. It makes the Civ more unbalanced. They're already, like, really good against melee heavy civs and, like, pretty weak against archer civs. And this just makes them, like, if they're already doing the things that they already want to be doing, like, they're insane. But, like, if you're playing 1v1 Arabia, for instance, you are going scouts and your opponent's going for archers. You can't just keep going scouts forever because you'll fall way too far behind in getting up to Castle Age. If you keep your scouts alive, then you can just completely smash archers in the face. However, if you're, like, say, you open, like, men-at-arms or something, then you can't, if your opponent's going, like, archers, then you need to, like, build skirmishers, but their skirmishers are just so awful that, yeah, there needs to be some stuff done. I feel like their missing of skirmishers, elite skirmisher that is a lot more painful than them missing pikemen, because at least you have camels to deal with cavalry, and gunpowder units in general are strong against cavalry. At least stronger, Janissaries can be pretty sick against, like, say, knight play from Franks or something like that. Maybe the scout change, like, gets them overall, like, it addresses a weakness of theirs, but it goes about it in the wrong way, in my opinion. So what is the solution? One, you can bite the bullet and give them elite skirmishers. Yeah, it takes some of the flavor away from the Civ, but you can always take elite skirm away from another Civ, right? Or you can do what I said way earlier with Berbers, and you can make the Genitor, well, one, you just rename it, but that's fine. And then you'd make it a regional unit between Berbers, Saracens, and Turks. If Turks, or even have it so it's like Turks and Saracens have access to regular Genitors, but not elite Genitors, I think that would, like, it would go a long way in helping out Turks. They're just way too polarizing of a civilization, like all these other civs. Last two, Vietnamese. Go into something is off. The Civ is mostly there, like all these other Civs, and the flavor is, again, totally on point, but there are some sore thumbs that stick out with this Civ. One is the enemy, like, revealing enemy positions at the start of the game. Why is that not the team bonus? Again, I don't like Imperial Skirmishers as a team bonus in the same way that I don't like Genitors as a team bonus. Not every Civ needs to be able to get imp skirms if they have a Vietnamese teammate, because you're not making skirmishers if you're in a team game scenario most of the time. Or if you are making skirmishers, it's probably the Vietnamese player anyway, as they have really good skirmishers. And then you have like this weird dynamic where you have rattan archers, which are essentially like, they're more or less skirmishers. They're like really good skirmishers. Yeah, I know they're archers, but they're anti-archer archers, which is pretty much what a skirmisher is. But you also have the Imperial skirmisher, and you also have tankier archers, which makes you even better against archers. So it's like so much of the civ is just leaning heavily on the anti-archer archer civ. I do think it definitely helped a lot when they were given husbandry and their eco bonus, especially. And I think that made them a very competitive civ and a lot of fun. And they are a really fun civ to play, but like all of that feels really weird. I really don't get why the reveal enemy positions at the start of the game isn't a team bonus, because it effectively is. It's already a team bonus. It's just annoying for everyone involved because the guy who's playing Vietnamese has to ping all the enemy TCs and either through text or voice chat say, okay, hey, this person's here, this person's here, this person's here, and the other person, you know, can't see for themselves and is totally reliant on their Vietnamese teammate from doing that, or maybe like they're luring a boar so they miss it, and it's like, hey, can you show me again? And yeah, that definitely should change. Also, paper money is silly. It's a silly, unique tech. I like the idea of it giving trade carts extra HP or armor, not both, because that, again, it would fit the whole team dynamic, and it would work with like trade, and I think that would actually be a very helpful bonus. Like Silk Road is actually a very helpful, unique tech for Italians. Similar concept, but in this case, it would make your trade a lot harder to raid, which is actually super important in late game. But overall, the Civ has a very clear theme. It has some very good units, some very fun units. And yeah, I mean, I like the Civ. It's a good one, but there are some weird things with it. And last, but certainly not least, will be the Vikings. Really close. I was actually just reconsidering it right now because I'm thinking maybe they can be incomplete. The only question I have with Vikings is the longboat. I feel like longboats might be a little too good. Yeah, there are situations where longboats are more expensive than galleys, so you want to go for, the war galley play. But I feel like a lot of like hybrid maps or like mangrove maps, I'm thinking of Bog Islands in particular, it can just be so hard to stop like fast castle longboats from Vikings because they have an insane eco. That aside, longboats are really hard, like they're countered super hard by caravels, but only one civ has caravels. And yeah, that shouldn't be a whole dynamic anyway. And maybe their team bonus is actually still a little too good. However, other than that, I think the civ is like, it's like 95% there. The only thing that's holding back like almost all of these civs is just like one little thing, right? And I feel bad for like pretty much all of these civilizations not putting them incomplete, but it's just, again, minor tweaks, right? And I think Vikings, like, they're almost there. They have excellent flavor. Everybody loves them. Their berserks are great. Just their super strong eco that they're famous for, but having really bad cavalry because of it. You have good infantry, but you miss halberdier, but you have chieftains to kind of help you out with it. And, just having the whole water theme, but they're still great on land maps. Well, Arabia, at least. They're pretty good on Arabia. I think Vikings are, they're, again, a classic civ. They're a really great civ. I have a little bit of a question mark on the longboat, but other than that, it has the stamp of approval from Ornlu. And that's it, guys. Here's all 35 civilizations as of December 1st, 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, feel free to discuss in the comments what you think about all the civs or whichever civ you have a passionate feeling about. And yeah, if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, I stream on Twitch in case you did not know, and the link for that is in the description. I cast tournament games and stuff like 4 days a week plus, so definitely leave a follow there if you're enjoying that. And again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.